Welcome back to Airhead Barn. In our previous episode we started with rebuilding engine electrics, and we successfully showed how the alternator can be rebuilt, and in this episode I'm going to show you how similar thing can be done with the starter motor. So here I have the original Airhead starter motor, and this one is pretty common in probably over 1 million cars that Germans made in those days. Basically all of them use the same or very similar starter. This starter is in really good working condition, so nothing is wrong with it, but still I'm going to open it, clean everything, inspect. If something needs to be changed like brushes, I'm going to do that. And without further ado, let's proceed with this part of our project. Okay, so here is our starter. We will first start with the solenoid, and in order to remove this one, there are here two screws that are usually very stubborn, and you would need some kind of impact driver. Manual one works really good, at least it worked for me, to loosen these. And now when they are loose, it's pretty straightforward just to remove these screws that hold the solenoid to the body. And then on the back side you basically have this nut that needs to be removed, and that nut holds the connector for a big wire that goes between main body of a starter and a solenoid. So I'm just going to remove that one first. Nut and a wave washer. Okay, there it is. And now up front we are going to remove these two screws. Alright, so we are going to need to clean everything, but to disassemble this solenoid we would essentially need to unsolder these two terminals, and then there are two screws that hold the plastic cover attached to the body, and we can pull it up. So what usually happens is that grime and dust and oil gets inside, and then there are copper contacts that get dirty, and they cannot establish good connection with the rest of the solenoid, and that's when actually whole starter can fail because of that. Or at least solenoid can fail, and you won't have you won't be able to start a bike. For that reason I'm going to inspect what's going on inside, if those contacts need to be cleaned, and then I'll put everything back together. Okay, so we have solenoid mounted in a soft jaws and soldering iron and a suction pump, and I hope we'll be able to remove this bump of solder. Okay. Just like that. And now you can actually see how these copper contacts are not the cleanest, and it was a good idea to disassemble this and clean it with a sandpaper. You can take a closer look here on these, so they will definitely benefit of using some sandpaper on them. So I have here 320 fine sandpaper. This is going to work fine, nice with this one. Now we are going to just clean everything and we can essentially put it back together. Okay, so finally we can give it a squirt with this electronic spray. And same for the cap. Okay, and now we can put things back together. Gasket goes back like this. And then on this side you have two wires. On this side one hole is bigger than the another, where you have two wires go through the bigger hole. And now before soldering you want to make sure that the contact can actually go inside the slot, just like that. That looks good to me, and now we can basically solder these wires back. Just going to put a bit of paste flux. It helps whenever you are soldering, it cleans this really nicely. Okay, solenoid is fully done, and now we can proceed with the rest of the starter. So now we can proceed with the main body of the starter. Okay, first I'm going to take off this cap. It's held by 2 screws. So very gently remove gasket. So now there is a clip here that needs to be removed, like a C-clip. There it is. And then there is a washer, 2 washers actually, behind. Great. Now we can proceed with the removal of these 2 long screws. Okay, brushes remained inside, so we'll just need to tap this part so it dislodges from the main body. And here I'm going to unscrew this bolt that holds a fork in place, so we can remove it there as well. Screwdriver on one side and then 10mm socket on the another. There is a nut and then there is a washer as well. Okay, actually split washer. Now this bolt just goes through and we can remove the whole assembly. Okay, cover. And here are the brushes in this holder, and they look pretty decent, so I won't need to replace them. There is a lot of meat. So here is the brush. I'll actually compare it to the new brushes that I have, and then but this one looks pretty good to me. There is a lot of meat left, so probably we don't need to replace it. I'm just going to clean everything and then degrease it. Also clean this mating surface of the rotor, and we can put everything back together. Okay, so here we are back. I was able to clean basically all parts, and some of them I decided to paint. Here I have a completely cleaned rotor that is now ready to be installed. I deglazed the commutator here, and everything looks pretty good to me. There are no dings, chips or any kind of damage on rotor, so we can definitely use this one. Front cover is basically cast iron, and after cleaning it with a brass wheel, I really like the look of it. I removed the old paint, and this is how I'm going to keep it. I'm not going to paint it. And this is the rear cover that I decided to paint, and basically main body is now getting dry from a painting. So here I have the repair kit for this starter. that includes all 4 brushes and also brass bushings. So brass bushings go here in a rear cover and on a front cover, and I'm definitely going to replace those. And then for the brushes, actually I did a comparison between brushes that are currently on and these new, and there is not too much big difference. Actually these can last for so much long time that there is no point of replacing those, so I'm going to keep them. What I did is just deglaze them and then cleaned everything, and they can safely be used for many more miles of this bike. Okay, so now we should proceed with removing bushing, and the way how to do that is just, I believe 10mm socket should work fine here. There it is. Looks perfect. Okay. For this one, it looks like 9mm should fit. Okay. There it is. Okay, now we can proceed with installation. Before doing that, I'm just going to put a light coat of grease here on this side of a shaft that goes through that bushing that we previously installed. And also here where fork is going to engage. Okay. Don't go too crazy with grease, because it can end up on a contacts and create a lot of issues. Okay, and now we will just put everything in. Okay, just like that. So now I would just like to put some more grease on this bolt, because this bolt actually goes through the fork, so a fork can slide through it easy. That's why I want to grease it. Okay. Split washer comes here, and the nut. That's it. Okay, we will tighten everything at the end. Alright, now we can focus on this part, and I'm going to install first this housing. And before actually that, there is this rubber that needs to go here. Okay, just like this. Okay, this is how rubber is placed. And now basically we can drive housing, or in this case it's stator. Okay. Now we have a brush holder that basically goes over the commutator here, and then there are two cutouts in brush holder where big screws are going to be inserted. So just to position it correctly, I'm going to drive screws. Okay, so these two big bolts are here just to make sure that everything is well centered. And now we can basically push these two brushes in and also set other two. Alright, this one is in, this one is in as well. Right, and now we are going to work on the other two. Perfect. Everything centered. Now, next thing that we can do is put some more grease here on this side of a shaft and then cover. And at this point we can remove long screws. this cover needs to go over this rubber grommet. Just lightly dip it in. That looks good. So with the pick, I'm just going to align these two holes for the brushes holder. Now basically we can proceed with the shimming of the shaft and putting the cap. So we have here like 3 thin shims, and they go first. 1, 2, 3, and then there is a thicker washer, and finally circlip or just C-clip. Okay. So I just need to drive this shaft a tiny bit, just like that. And it should be enough for my clip to grab on it. Perfect. There it is. Now I have a gasket that goes on the bottom. And finally this cap that I'm going to fill with grease. Next thing, we want to put solenoid. Okay, and with that we conclude this rebuilt video for the starter, and it's ready to be placed on a bike.